Hello everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Steven and this is the Storytime channel. And quickly before I get into the video, I just want to point out that 60% of viewers watching aren't subscribed, so if you enjoy this video, make sure to subscribe so you'll never miss an upcoming one. We've got some dramatic malicious compliance stories to read, so let's jump right into our first story of the day by thatratchick. Speak to me in my native white language. If you insist, sir. I used to work at a gas station in a pretty culturally diverse area, but overall was basically the border between a very rural area and a suburban area in Florida. The suburban area was more culturally diverse with the different businesses around and access to the highway. The rural area was what you would call redneck country, and anyone who lived there would tell you the same. I'm Filipina and those features kind of show. I have high cheekbones, dark hair, dark eyes, and somewhat tanned skin. I'm more light-skinned because my mom is white, so it throws some people off, but I'm almost never identified as Filipina because I speak Spanish. In that particular area, we had a lot of Spanish customers, so some would overhear me speak to them in Spanish and either look surprised that I knew how to speak it, or more commonly, mistaken me for being Hispanic. One morning at around 4:30 or 5 o'clock, a Hispanic regular came in and got his usual coffee, water bottle, and a pastry of some kind that we sold. We'd usually talked while he made his coffee because we'd just opened up and it was dead around that time. He was on his way out to head to work when another, easily 6-foot, middle-aged white gentleman swung open the door with a very annoyed expression. I was caught off guard not only because he swung open the door aggressively, but because there was no other car in the parking lot or at any pumps, so I had no idea where he came from. My regular tells me adios, so I naturally responded with pase un buen dia. I think my mistake was that I looked at my new customer before I was done speaking to the previous one, and this made him very angry. He started yelling at me saying I was being racist and that I was racially profiling him. What he meant by that, I still don't know. I apologized and tried to explain that I was talking to the other man walking out of the door, and he cut me off and told me to speak to him in his native white language, putting a heavy emphasis on white when he said it. I then began to say random phrases I could remember in various languages like French, German, Italian, threw a little Polish in there, and he went off. "Stop, I can't understand what you're saying, you freaking border rat witch." Honestly, that was a new one for me, but I stopped as requested. I looked at him with the biggest smile on my face and told him, "I'm sorry, sir. I didn't know which white language you wanted me to use, so I was trying all of them to see which one it was." He started calling me racist again, claiming he was going to call corporate on me for racially discriminating against him and not giving him service. I told him I didn't know what he wanted me to do for him yet because he was too busy racially profiling me and spitting racial slurs at me for me to ask him. He smiled smugly and said nobody is going to believe my illegal butt that he said any of that anyway. I politely pointed to the cameras around the store and told him that I had 8 different angles of him saying all of it to me. His smile vanished. He told me to freak off and go to heck and stormed out. Honestly, to this day, I have no idea where he came from or what he needed from the store, but that experience hasn't and probably won't ever leave me. Sir, wherever you are now, I hope you're a little more cultured and at the very least, understand that not all white people speak English. This actually gives me a great opportunity to ask a fun question. What language can you speak? Can you speak multiple? Can you speak only English? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear all the interesting answers. Our next story is posted by ForcedtocreateID, Neil and the Fancy Biscuits. Preamble: quarantine is boring, reading Reddit all day is boring, life is boring, so let's try writing out an old story instead for some entertainment to all malicious compliance lovers. Background: this happened about 5 years ago and did not take place in the United States of America. Neil was an older staff who worked in several different departments before an abrupt transfer to the PR department thanks to a company-wide reorganization. He had a reputation as a prankster who often slacked off, took frequent sickies, and rarely took things seriously. Though Neil was apparently told off on a regular basis, he was ultimately retained as he did manage to shine on occasion and had pretty good PR skills. Neil could also be fun to work with, as long as you got his brand of humor. Unfortunately, Neil also came equipped with a bad temper and rather set ways. The early days were terribly uncomfortable for all of us for several reasons. 1. A forced transfer that no one wanted. 2. The wide age gap between him and the rest of the team, approximately 15 years on average. 3. Being the only male in the PR department. 4. Department culture clash, with Neil's previous departments being much more relaxed/laid back, and the PR department a more buttoned up, fastidious, and fast-paced environment. Though it all somehow eventually worked out in the long run, there were a fair number of conflicts at first, especially between Neil and me as I was tasked to get him up to speed. I could appreciate that it most certainly wasn't easy for a man at his age to have to be guided through nearly everything by someone almost young enough to be his daughter, but that our personalities did not gel well made it that much worse. Case in point, the existing PR department staff were all conscious about neatness and cleanliness to some degree, while Neil was, to put it mildly, almost the exact opposite. He left his jackets and blazers on the floor on a regular basis and thought nothing of rolling chairs across them, placed coffee cups and snacks on top of official documents and submitted them with coffee cup and oil stains, and once built a pyramid of used coffee cups instead of throwing them away. Said pyramid reached a count of about 12 coffee cups, or around 4.5 days worth of coffee, before the PR director noticed it and made him throw them all away. Neil sulked for hours after that. The build-up. I was seated right next to Neil in a small, relatively isolated corner of our semi-open concept office that was oddly blocked off by some pillars due to nothing more than piss-poor planning and only had space for 2 desks. The nearest coworker was about 30 steps, a fax machine in a corner away. I tried not to mess with Neil's personal space beyond binning an empty coffee cup or 2, or 3 or 4, or almost completely devoured bread if I noticed them still on his desk after he left for the weekend on Fridays. But about 3 months after Neil's transfer, my dust allergy started acting up, and I figured it was due to the inch-thick layer of dust decorating Neil's table and cabinets. I told Neil about my allergies and asked if he could clean his desk more frequently. He agreed and did so for a while at first, but soon lapsed into his old habits. Requests and even pleas did not work. Our PR manager stepped in to talk about his hygiene habits, and it worked, but that too only for a few weeks. With Neil's permission, I eventually took to cleaning his table when I cleaned mine once in a few days. He was appreciative of this at first, until I inadvertently destroyed his second attempt at the pyramid of used coffee cups. It devolved into an argument that required a meeting held in a conference room with both our PR manager and PR director in attendance, and ended with Neil slamming his head on the table demanding that I never, ever touch a thing on his desk again without his permission, not even a speck of dust, because it's his area and I had no right to intrude. By that time, we had lost half a day to the argument and I just wanted to get back to my work. So I simply agreed, and we all stomped back to our respective desks like a herd of angry elephants. Malicious compliance. Neil was a local but was born in a place much further away. His parents, long retired, opted to return to Neil's birthplace where they still retained a home in the countryside. Neil would make frequent trips to visit them, and each time he did, he would bring back perishable snacks, or what we jokingly called fancy gold leaf biscuits as an internal joke after a bit of mix-up the first time we saw them, from his trips. The fancy biscuits needed to be kept chilled after a day or 2, or they would turn bad and moldy and even stink after a while. There were occasions when Neil forgot to place them in the fridge before going off for the day, and I always helped him to do so if noticed. He likewise always thanked me for that, as not only were they expensive, they were handmade and could only be bought from a particular shop some distance from his hometown. About a month after our argument, Neil leaves for his regular trip and comes back with the usual fancy biscuits on a Friday. As was his wont, he dashes off for his regular Friday drinks, completely forgetting about the perishables on his desk. I nearly pick them up, but blessedly recall his demand just in time. Respecting his wishes, I do not touch them and simply give an unladylike snort before leaving for the weekend. Monday, Neil calls in sick. Alright, hope you get better soon, Neil. Tuesday, Neil calls in sick again. He's going to see a doctor. Wednesday, Neil calls in. He's been given 3 days rest. Get well soon, Neil. Thursday, no Neil. Friday, no Neil. Second Monday, Neil calls in saying his water pipe burst and needs to stay at home to clean up the mess. He can't get PR manager or PR director as they are in the meetings. Can I let them know? Of course, Neil, I'll let them know. Second Tuesday, no Neil. PR manager informs me he has taken an extra day off. Second Wednesday, Neil returns and is absolutely aghast at the state of his desk. His fancy biscuits, which he left unboxed, have turned into a living work of art with beautiful mossy green-gray mold mixed with some swirls of delicate blue hues and deep winding black strips into the foreground. It is spilling over one side of the box and eating into the cardboard as it valiantly attempts to join the miniature art piece that is one half-eaten brethren fallen partway out of the box. There is a ghastly smell permeating the entire section of our office, one that wasn't noticed any earlier, just maybe possibly because of the gigantic transparent plastic box that I dangled over his desk, almost completely covering the fancy biscuits using a DIY rod made from an extendable clothes stick, raffia string, and lots of tape. I made sure the box didn't meet the table, so technically speaking, I hadn't even touched a single speck of dust, as per his request. There are people bustling about trying to find the source of the weird smell, but haven't quite reached our little isolated corner yet. I'm wearing 2 layers of surgical face masks with a generous dab of mint toothpaste in between to ward off the smell as I go on with my work while waiting for Neil's arrival. Neil's face is a picture, and he stands there gaping like a fish for a good minute before he turns puce as he realizes what has happened and storms up to me. For a moment, I think I'm about to experience the brand new sensation of being beaten up by a coworker as we stare/glare at each other in silence until Neil bursts into laughter and tears. We've been pretty alright since then. Well, mostly. I really thought Neil was about to blow up at OP, but I guess this is right up his humor alley. I'm glad to hear that it actually worked out well between them. I just hope that maybe the experience helped Neil get a little bit better with the hygiene. And our final story of the day is by Music Monkey 111. My pop complied to the request to supply evidence that my nan had passed away. Background. This happened 6 years ago, so I'm a little fuzzy on details. It's also worth noting that this happened in Australia, where it can take up to a month to receive birth, marriage, and death certificates. March 9th, 2014, my nan passed away. 2 weeks later, my pop received a letter in the mail from the local courthouse and assumed it must be my nan's death certificate. He opened it to find to his confusion that nan had been summoned for jury duty. He is then not sure what to do, so he phoned me for me to ask the Google computer what to do. I got the number for who he had to call and left him to sort things out. Pop then phoned jury service and had the following conversation repeated to me by him. "Hi, my wife's died and she's summoned for jury duty. What do I do?" "I'm sorry, sir. You're going to need to put your wife on the phone so she can tell us that herself." "I can't put her on the phone. She died 2 weeks ago." "Well, you either need to supply us with a death certificate or put her on the phone so she can tell us herself." "What are you, a dumb blonde with giant fake boobs?" He then hung up on them and called me back. He wanted to know if he could get the certificate faster. I told him he could contact births, deaths, and marriages, but it probably wouldn't do any good. My pop, now furious, decided the best course of action was to go to the pub, have a nice cold beer, and work out what to do next. The next morning, I get a call from my pop asking if he can borrow my portion of my nan's ashes. I agree, and he comes and picks her up from my house. Roughly 40 minutes later, I get a call from my auntie who was trying to control her laughter to explain to me what my smart butt pop has done. Turns out his next best plan without the certificate was to take my nan to the courthouse. He took 3/5 portions of her ashes to the courthouse and placed them in front of the reception lady before calmly saying, "I have brought part of my wife down here to explain to you people that she cannot attend jury duty as she is dead and has been for 2 weeks, but if you insist, I am more than happy to come back with her and place her on the jury bench, not that I'm sure she'll be of any help." The poor receptionist was apparently so shocked, she had to excuse herself to go throw up. My Nan was quickly excused from jury duty, and Pop was told they would remove her from the list to avoid this same mistake happening in the future. I definitely feel bad for OP's father. First off, I can't even imagine having to deal with the situation with your wife passing away, and then 2 weeks later getting almost a slap in the face saying, "Well, can you put her on the phone? She needs to confirm that herself." Like, are you kidding me? Did you not just hear what he said? That was ridiculous that the receptionist even said that. I agree with what the dad asked her, that's for sure. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today, so if you have a favorite story of the day, let me know which one and why in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like and subscribe if you haven't. And make sure to click the bell to turn notifications on too so you'll never miss an upcoming video. No matter what you did, whether it was liking, commenting, subscribing, thank you for supporting me right here on the Storytime channel. It all helps the channel grow immensely, so thank you so very much for supporting me. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and until next time, I'll be reading even more stories to share with you guys right here on the Storytime channel.